Good evening, ma'am.
How to look after babies, naughty babies.
Ma'am,
100 kids are there.
Oh, I know.
ma'am.
100 kids are there. 100 of an array. A lot of
Huh?
Auntie,
Come on.
wait.
Then camera start.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
On that.
No, this one.
My camera.
Really?
पापा का कॉल है क्या अभी? वीडियो ऑफ।
Good morning.
How?
What is your name?
Good evening, ma'am. No.
हटा देना वीडियो.
Papa, don't speak it.
Ma'am. Hello.
Hello. Hello, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am.
Sir, why are you meeting? Good morning, sir. Good morning, ma'am.
Good evening, ma'am. Good evening, ma'am.
Pooja, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Shall we start? It's 7 p.m.
Yes, ma'am. Ritu, ma'am, shall we start?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we wait for some more people to come?
Actually, some people are joining.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
Can you just give us a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Can you just give us a couple of minutes?
All the participants, I request you to please mute yourselves. The screen has been shared only for presentation purpose. Kindly do not scribble on the screen. Thank you. Okay, I think we can start. Good evening, dear parents and everyone present with us today. For the benefit of those outside the DPS Bangalore East family watching us live on YouTube, this is Sukriti Prabhu Shetty, Student Counselor, DPS Bangalore East. On behalf of the Principal, Mrs. Manila Carvalho, as well as the Department of Psychology at Delhi Public School, Bangalore East, I welcome each and every one of you to InSync 2020, Nurturing the Mind, Body and Soul. This is our endeavor to promote mental well-being of all stakeholders that make up our learning community. It is truly wonderful to have this session packed with such enthusiastic parents of children from nursery to grade 5. Joining children in their world of play, focusing on connection and confidence, giggling and roughhousing, and following your child's lead all constitute the concept of playful parenting. On this note, I wish to introduce to you our guest speaker for the webinar, Playful Parenting, Ms. Akanksha Pandey. Ms. Akanksha Pandey is currently working at a consultant clinical consultant clinical psychologist at Fortis Hospital, Bengaluru, with 7 years of experience in the field of mental health. She has pursued MPhil in clinical psychology. She has been trained in child and adolescent mental health, adult psychiatry, geriatric psychiatry, consultation liaison psychiatry, neuropsychology, and management of psychological issues. She has been a part of research and academic programs and has contributed as author in psychiatry books as well as leading newspapers. A very warm welcome to you, Ms. Akanksha. We are indeed very delighted to have you here with us today. Before we start, I request all the parents to please mute yourselves in order to avoid any disturbance during the session. You can post all your questions in the chat box and it will be discussed at the end of the session. Without any further ado, I hand over to Ms. Akanksha to educate us more about playful parenting. Ma'am, we are unable to hear you.
Okay, I'm sorry, I was on mute.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
Thank you so much for inviting me for this webinar. I'm very, very happy to be a part of this because this topic is something which I feel extremely important. Because my practice requires me to see patients day in, day out, and somewhere I do get a glimpse, an idea that parenting is such an important skill. It is an art, actually. It is the most important art that is needed to shape up a future. So I think, yes, we are going to talk about some very important tips here, very important topic, and I welcome all the parents here. Thank you so much for joining in for this webinar where we can discuss about a lot of parenting skills. Just a small disclaimer, just because we are talking about parenting skills does not mean that any of you is any less. I know you all are amazing parents. You are doing your best to for the good of your child, but sometimes it's always nice to pick up a new strategies, or try to build in new ways of learning new styles of parenting and all. So we are just going to talk about that. Nowhere it is intended to make you feel that you're any less. You guys are doing amazing job at it, but we're just going to learn something new here. Okay, so with this I will just share my screen immediately. For that you'll have, yes. Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So we're going to proceed with this. Let me just put this on mute. Okay. All right. So like I said, parenting is a very, very important skill. Now, how can I stop this message from popping in? Or
From
it'll
the
be
chat box?
the participants coming in, or is it going to be here? Because it might interfere the screen, I believe.
I think there's a small cross mark there, ma'am. You can just
No,
cancel it.
I can't.
Pooja,
Anyways,
ma'am.
no
Okay.
problem, no problem. We'll go ahead. Anyways, I'm going to talk more. So, okay. So, yes, the parenting skills that I'm going to talk about here. Somebody is drawing on the screen, whatever it is.
Please refrain from drawing on the screen. Parents, I request you to please monitor.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Fine. So we'll be talking about the parenting skill. This webinar is extremely important for the parents. So I would want their attention more on whatever we are going to discuss now. So before I talk about the skills and before I talk about what is playful parenting, let us first try to understand, what common mistakes as adults we do. And until unless we realize what is our part, we will not be able to fix up the other part. Because a lot of times we might displace our mistakes onto the child. We might feel that it is the child who's at fault, but a lot of times maybe our approaches are not into the place, and maybe we need some correction into that. So before we do any kind of a management or any kind of a changes, we need to first identify what are those common mistakes that we sometimes do unknowingly. None of us do that intentionally, but maybe we are doing it unknowingly. So what can we do about it? The first mistake that people often do is the comparisons. We some very unknowingly, I know all of you would know that yes, we should not compare the siblings, we should not compare to others, but sometimes very unknowingly we do that, and that has a very, very deep impact. Now whatever I'm going to talk here, I'm going to talk from my practical experience with the people who come and sit here. So I see children also, I see adults also, and somehow children and adults both, for them, I've understood one thing.
No, ma'am.
Somebody put me on mute. Okay. So the comparisons, like I was saying, it is very, very important to understand that sometimes we do this comparison in a very subtle way without knowing, without intending to do that, which can actually, have a impact onto the child or on their functioning and all. Because when I see people in my practice coming in, a lot of adults, middle-aged people and all, when I let them speak about them, when I tell them to tell me about their lives, they have so much to tell about their childhood. They have so much to express what happened in their childhood, and if it was good, then also it has a very important role to play in your adulthood. And if it unfortunately had some kind of ups and downs, even then, it has a lot of impact onto the adulthood. So childhood becomes important, and more so the parenting. So as parents, the best gift I think you can give to your children is the parenting, good parenting, because this is what they're going to carry all their lives. They might not carry that toy for which they fought with you like anything, but they're definitely going to carry the experiences all their life. Your parenting is going to shape them up in a particular way. And if at all there are comparisons into it, if unknowingly between the siblings or between neighbors or in the classrooms or classmates and all, somewhere it has a very negative effect on the self-esteem of the child. The child ends up believing that I am not good enough. The moment we bring in comparison as one of the constructs, I think it immediately hits the child's self-esteem. The child feels that I'm not good enough. Some children, when they have this feeling of I'm not good enough, they become attention seeking, they become more irritable, they become more demanding, they become more threatening or controlling. They may build up a lot of unhealthy behaviors. Some children, when they feel that they're not good enough, they completely give up and isolate themselves. They feel that I'm not, I should be out of it, I'm not good, I will never be liked, I will not be loved. And they develop a sense of fear of abandonment, or they develop some kind of uh, unhealthy way of thinking, or some kind of poor self concept, which really disturbs their adulthood. So comparisons is something which should be totally avoided. That is something which is definitely not to be done while you are parenting your kid. The second mistakes, I'm somehow not able to scroll. Please, somebody, please, I request you all to not share your screen. We have only 45 minutes. Let's not waste it in the random
Can
activities. I
the
will be.
parents please monitor this? Children, this session is not for you all, it's only for your parents. Yes, ma'am. There's
No problem.
some
I understand.
whistling
I
going
understand.
on.
I understand. It's absolutely okay. So yeah. So the other thing, role models. I think we as adults, forget about being parent only. We as adults, we are role models to a lot of us. While we were growing up, if you remember, if you go into your childhood, you would remember. We all had our role models, be it celebrities, be it even in your school, even in your classroom, you would have a favorite teacher, and or you would want your parents to be like your friends' parents. You would idolize one of your friends' parents. So we all happen to be role models for somebody or the other, and mostly for our own children. So being a role model is a very tough job to do also, but in a way easy also. So if you try to do things which are not your cup of tea, or if you try to imitate others, you can be a big failure in being a role model. But if you try to understand what kind of person I am, what kind of a parent I am, and where do I need to bring in the modification and changes, probably you will start reflecting or displaying the right and the desirable behavior, which your child can actually imitate from you and learn as a basic skill. So I think you as a role model is very important. Now, why am I talking about this here? Because I see so many times parents come to me and they complain that he's very argumentative, he does not listen, and he interrupts when I'm talking. But I would see the same behavior in the parent when the child is trying to communicate to me. The moment child tries to explain something to me or express something to me, they will cut the child 10 times. So in that way, there is so much of a discrepancy. You are wanting something, but your child is doing something else. I mean, and you are also displaying a different kind of an attitude. So I think being role model is also very important job that as a parent you do. And if there is any kind of mismatch into what you say and what you do, it is definitely going to hamper your child's behavior. And then we should not be punishing the child for that. Okay, so it's important to know what kind of a role model I am to my child. Shouting match, very, I think it's a very common scenario in any house, I would say. Even I would remember my childhood also. Sometimes there would be moments when there would be a lot of shouting match between the parent and the child, or sometimes between the parents because of the child. So it's very important to identify that this shouting match is actually something which has a very detrimental effect on children. So shouting match, like if the parent wants the child to do something and the child doesn't do, the easiest and the most second quick way of dealing with that behavior will be shout at the child, or being at distance and raising your voice to communicate what you want to say, or trying to raise your voice to make the child know that, okay, I am the elder one. So the shouting match, okay, it may get things under your control in that moment, but actually it does more damage than any good. So I think we need to understand that whenever you get into the shouting match, you need to identify and understand that this is exactly what the child is going to learn. The child immediately picks up that, okay, when I have to get something done, I have to raise my voice. I have to shout. I have to, create a situation. And this is totally coming from by imitating the elders or the parents in the home. So avoid shouting match. That is a very common mistake that a lot of us do as parents. We don't realize that it is actually making the child learn a wrong behavior. And then later on we sit and discuss, think about, why has my child become like that? Why does my child not speak easily and calmly? Why does he have to shout every time or throw a tantrum, every time they want something? So maybe they are learning it or picking it up from somewhere from their own environment. Inconsistency. Now, what happens mostly is, which we often commonly notice, or even children often report to us, that sometimes when, we often behave based on our mood, which is a normal thing. We all do that, We may behave in a particular way because if I'm feeling sad, I might be isolated. If I'm angry, I might shout at people. If I'm in a happy mood, I will just go gaga about everything. So the inconsistency, it is sometimes normal, but in certain things, for example, if I am busy right now, if I am, or maybe if I'm in a bad mood and my child comes running to me and shows me something that, okay, see, this is what I have done, even if it is completely senseless to me in that moment, if it makes no meaning to me, but still, if I shout back at my child and, say that, it is terrible, and I mean, what nonsense, you're just wasting my time showing me this crap, and, what will I do? And you wasted your time, you should have done something better. But on the contrary, maybe a couple of days back, I would have just, been very joyful with the child with the same kind of a thing, The child comes to you, shows something, you're in a good mood, and you show a very happy face to the child and appreciate. And 2 days later, you are just, shouting at the child for the same behavior. So it's very important to be consistent in your reaction to your child. Whenever and mostly when they're disobeying the rules. When they are doing something good, then also you must appreciate it, and parents should not take it for granted. Mostly we end up taking good behavior for granted. We are very much vocal about about our opinion or about our concern towards the child when they're doing a wrong behavior. But often we think that um, if the child is doing a bad behavior, we raise our voice, but if the child is doing a good behavior every day, we take it for granted. We're like, I mean, of course we don't have to appreciate it every day, but that's important. Whenever the child does something good, something extraordinary, or they learn something new, maybe they pick up on a new skill or a new domain and they try to do something creative, it's very important to be consistent in your reward to the child. And also it is equally important to be consistent in your reaction when the child is disobeying the rules. The child should be very well aware of the fact that there are certain no which is not going to be tolerated at all. So the child should get the same reaction to it. For example, if a child is throwing a tantrum, your reaction to it is going to be the same. I mean, if the child is throwing a tantrum, you need to walk out of the room. Now that should happen every time. It should not change. Normally what we do at home, we are very strict. Okay, if the child is throwing a tantrum, we'll ignore. But the moment we go to a grocery store or any kind of a public place and the child throws a tantrum, because of the fear of society and everybody, we just give up in that point. But sometimes for certain behaviors which are a complete no, we must have a very clear, very fixed kind of a reaction, so that the child knows no matter where I do, it's going to be the same thing. It's not going to, they can't manipulate, they can't bring in any kind of, other alternative behavior. So consistency in your rewards and your punishment both. Now by punishment, I do not mean the corporal punishment. I do not mean the punitive punishment or harsh punishment. I do not mean beating the child or scolding them, but punishment could be not reinforcing the behavior, walking out of that place, not re-encouraging the behavior in the child. So you have to be consistent in your administration of rewards and punishment, and there has to be consistency across the setting. Like I said, if the same behavior, if a child learns the habit of using slang words or wrong words or something wrong, even if they're doing it outside, it should be stopped. Even if they're doing at home, we should not take it lightly. We should change those behaviors. A lot of times we go a little bit easy when the child is displaying a wrong behavior at home, thinking, oh, it's okay, it's home. Certain behaviors, you should know what behaviors are not going to be tolerated at all, and that should be communicated to the child, and the child should be told or trained that if at all you do this behavior, this is what our reaction is going to be, even if you are at home or if you're at house. outside. For example, lying, stealing, disruption, or disrespecting others, or throwing objects at people, or hitting people. Now, these are a complete no every time, even if you're outside, even if you're home. Talking by shouting only. So that is something you should not even entertain at home. It's very important to be consistent in your approach in all kind of settings, so that the child has one clear message. A no is a no in every kind of setting. And what is good will always be appreciated, no matter how big or how small. The child should learn the concept of unconditional respect that they get. You know, it's okay. I mean, even if you do a small achievement, also you will be given appreciation. Even if you do a big one, you will be appreciated. So inconsistency is a mistake that we often do without identifying that we are doing that, and that somewhere shapes the child's behavior. Like I just spoke about corporal punishment. 2 times or 3 times we may repeat our instruction, and the fourth time we may just, I'm not sure, maybe a lot of you don't do that, but it's still been a very common practice that hitting the child or just scolding them very badly or pulling up their ear or hitting them on the head. A lot of parents say that we never slap our child, but just that sometimes here and there we just pat them, which is not okay. So the corporal punishment is something that needs to be completely avoided, because normally it serves no purpose to anybody. It is a complete no, because it only models aggression in the child. The child understands and learns that, okay, if things are not happening my way, I can go physical. I can also hit people. So they may not be hitting you because the child knows that they're dependent on you. They know that, they don't have that power to overpower you or intimidate you, but they can do the same thing in their school with other children, with other people around them. They can turn into bullies for other children, not just because they learned hitting from the parents, but also they may feel a sense of lacking power being at home. So they may want to get it by being in the school, by bullying other children. So how would they bully? They would have learned that, okay, whenever I want people to be scared of me, whenever I want people to be, fearful of me, or when I want them to follow what I want to say, I can hit them anytime. So the physical aggression is something which often comes as a result of corporal punishments, or like where you hit the child or scold them in a very bad way. It definitely increases the violence in children because that's how they see and learn. Children at the early age, they learn maximum through the observational learning. By seeing you, they will see, okay, this is, and mostly, of course, children are taught that parents and teachers are the two set of people who needs to be idolized completely. Whatever they do is right. So if you are hitting the child, or if you are shouting while talking to your partner, they will definitely learn the same way. If you talk to your partner in a negative tone, if you disrespect the partner, the child will know that, okay, this person can be disrespected. So, or if you hit the child every time they do something wrong, they will also know that this is what I can do to my younger sibling whenever they are not listening, because my parents are doing it. So it definitely increases impulsivity. It makes them feel that this is the easiest way to fix up things. Then they will never want to think of different solutions of fixing up a problem. So impulsivity, if you want to reduce in your child, definitely make sure that you display patience to them in dealing with a difficult situation, difficult behavior, unwanted behavior. It definitely diminishes the child's ability to cope with negative emotions. That means the moment they are feeling upset, it has to come out in form of physical aggression. So we have to make the children learn that it's okay to experience negative emotions. That does not mean we have to impulsively react to that. We can hold ourselves for a minute, we can be patient and find other ways of responding in that situation. So this is what the child learns when you avoid any kind of harsh punishment to them. Overscheduling. Now, I think this is one thing that I'm seeing. I mean, not just me, I mean, we normally get to see a lot in today's parents. There's a lot of overscheduling of children. Like every minute of their life is scheduled as per the school or as per their parents. So somewhere they're lacking their space. And I think children grow best when they're given freedom, when they're given a free space, more so, where they're allowed to do mistakes, where they're allowed to commit errors, where they're allowed to explore and experiment, learn through new ways. So it's very important to give them some space, some freedom. It's important for the parent to keep an eye whether they are into the right shape or not. Are they building up anything unhealthy or any of that way? But it's absolutely not preferred to overschedule their day, because then they will become completely dull, lethargic. And the way children display their emotional conflict is not like adults. It's completely different. Their emotional conflicts come out in form of behaviors. unhealthy or problematic behaviors. A lot of time, parents bring their children to us saying that, my child has become very rowdy, and they don't, he doesn't respect his elders, he answers back, and he doesn't respond when he's being spoken to, or when he's, when we are trying to teach him something, he's just being completely disrespectful. So we are only seeing the behavior, and we are seeing that as the child's identity. But rarely do we try to understand what is causing that behavior. For children, they can't come and talk like adults that, oh, this is troubling me, and what do I need to do? They are immature for displaying that kind of emotional maturity. So it is important to identify that what is it, that particular behavior or that conflict which is causing this kind of problematic behavior. So overscheduling is one of the very strong factors which is making children very irritable these days, or completely dull, lethargic, withdrawn. They don't want to participate in anything. They lack that energy and motivation to do anything. So overscheduling is something which we can avoid. It's important to have a rule structure in their day. As a parent, it's important for you to monitor that, but it's also equally important to give them some free space. And that free space should be a complete free space for them, where they can do whatever they want to do without any corrections or modifications. You shouldn't do this, or over deciding for your children, like, you should play basketball than cricket. This is more in need, this is more in trend. Maybe not everything has to be result oriented, something is process oriented. Let them enjoy the process. If they want to play cricket, if they want to play some very silly game in their free time, let them do that, because it's important. It's serving them some purpose. It is giving them some sense of control, a calmness or a peace in that moment, which is very important for their growth, for their mental health. The moment we try to discipline everything, the moment we try to control everything around them, we are somewhere making them again feel that you are not good enough, you don't know. We know the best. Of course, we know the best as parent, but we should always leave that space for them to experiment. And that can only happen when they have some free time in their schedule, in their day. Inflexible parenting approach also is a very, very important aspect that we need to take care of, because this is sometimes a very big problem with the children. And I think this is one of the errors that I often see when I see my patients. Even the adults, when I ask them to tell me about their childhood, this is one parenting approach which a lot of people tell me, a lot of patients or clients who come to me, they tell about. Being inflexible is something, basically inflexible means that it has to be in a particular way. This is the right way, and I know the best. You don't know, I know. You are not okay, I'm okay. Seeing things is black or white. If it is done this way, it is good. If it is done that way, it is not good. So somewhere it invalidates the child's experiences a lot. If the child wants to do something independently in a different way, but the outcome is same, but the process of doing is different, a lot of parents feel that this is not the right way. They try to correct the child. So before, I think for parents, I would say it's very important to be observers than being reactors all the time, or to try to correct everything. Sometimes we should allow that flexible environment. Let the child do, let us wait, have the patience and wait for the outcome. Maybe they can do it much better than our way. Maybe they can be more creative. So it's very important to have flexibility in our parenting style. Okay, what our parents did was needed in that time. What I saw my parents doing was a great behavior, but maybe it is not suitable right now. Every generation is different. With every generation, the IQs are different, the EQs are different, the social quotient is different, their learning is different, their environment is different. So it's very important to understand and appreciate the fact that it is good to learn from what your parents did to you, but it's also very important to apply that with a lot of flexibility. My mother did this way, so I'm also going to do the same. That will ensure good parenting. I think that's not a very healthy way to look at it. Your child is unique. You were a different person. So, your approaches have to be unique to the child's need. So flexible, it makes you more, see the world in the black or white way, which can make you very impulsive, which can make you a control freak, which can make you an invalidating person. And invalidating has very, very detrimental effects in childhood, in adulthood. If the child grows up being invalidated about anything that he does or feels, those children often have a very poor self-concept in their adulthood. So flexibility in parenting is very, very important. What should be the ideal role of parents? We've spoken about so many mistakes and everything. What should be the ideal role? See, the purpose of parenting is because the children, they are immature, they're growing up, they are not yet equipped with all the maturity that they must have. So, we need to be the guide and support for them so that they don't get into any harm or damage. but it is nowhere equal to controlling the children. It is nowhere equal to overpowering them or intimidating them. No, that is wrong. Our job as parents is to be the facilitator for them. As a facilitator, what does it mean? That I have to give it a push. The car will run on its own. I have to give it a push. It only needs a key, right? Once the key has been put, then the motor does its job. So it's important to trust the motor to do its job. Our job is to only give it a push or be a facilitator whenever, the car is stopping or it is taking breaks or it is hanging or getting stuck somewhere. So you as a parent should be a facilitator to your child, not a controller, not a the child should feel the difference when they come home. Should feel like, oh, this is my home. This is where I can be what I am. I can go to my parents if I'm finding something difficult. A lot of children are scared of going to their parents because they feel they will be preached. They will be given a lot of lectures and lessons. Because normally this is a very commonly seen thing that, as parents, we often try to solve their problems. The moment they come to us for something, we jump onto solving their problems. A lot of times they don't want their problems to be solved. They only want to be heard. If you just hear them unconditionally, if you just hear them with active listening, I think that is the greatest help you can do, because by the time they would have expressed what they wanted to say, they will feel a lot of confidence being around you, because they will get a sense of security that, okay, whenever I'm anxious, I can go and talk to my parent. They're not going to shout back at me. They're not going to find my mistakes into it. Oh, it's happening to you because you did so. See, I've always told you. I always tell you that way. Now, that's not a very healthy way of parenting. We should rather give them a space and confidence for them to come to us when they are feeling the worst, when they don't have the confidence of showing their face to anybody. They can still come to their parents. They can still talk about what worries them the most. So I think being a facilitator is very important. Make your presence felt around them in a healthy way. Our children often know, yeah, parents are there. They're always going to be shouting. Some voice will be coming from here and there. No, no, don't do this, don't do that. But we should sometimes make our presence felt in a very healthy way, in a playful manner. Children often, we often struggle that, my child is so much stuck to the video game. He only wants to go and play outside. He doesn't want to be with us at all. It's important to sit and identify what is it that we are lacking in our approach. What can I do to be that friend to my child? What can I do to become more attractive to my child than the video game? How can I bring in that playfulness in my attitude or in my way of facilitating the child, that the child runs to me, for any kind of help or any kind of solutions. So it's not controlling them. It's not being possessive, which is going to give you any way out. It's trying to figure out what is making me unapproachable to my child. Why is my child wanting to avoid me and not want me when he is in distress? So become a facilitator. Try to take interest in hearing about their day. So what was good about your day? It's very important to have a good communication with them. And more so, I think as a parent, verbal communication is not important as much as is the non-verbal communication for building up a good confidence in your children. So take interest in hearing about their day, convey your support to them verbally, let them know that it's okay, you are growing up, it's okay to commit mistakes, but it's okay to also come and talk about it. It's not okay to hide away your mistakes. It's not okay to feel fearful with the parents. It's not okay to feel scared of us. You should let them know all of these things in a very verbal, vocalized manner, so that they know, okay, if I did something wrong, maybe they will teach me something new, but I can talk about it. They will not shout at me. They will not tell me that, oh, you are a terrible person. So express your concern whenever they are looking upset. I remember this girl lately who is coming to me. Her only complaint is that she feels unimportant. She feels that everything is noticeable to my parents, but if I'm feeling suddenly low, if I'm feeling withdrawn, I'm feeling a little bit dull, nobody comes and asks me if everything is okay or not. Now I was surprised that children notice that also. They expect that also. So it's very important to express your concern, to be observant about their behaviors, about their mood swings. If they are feeling low, your job is not to go and immediately pressurize them to tell whatever they are feeling, and if they don't tell, you become more clingy, or you become more controlling to them, or you immediately try to fix up their problems, give them solutions. No. Whenever you notice them that they are being a little upset, it's okay to approach them and tell them that I've been noticing that you're feeling a little low. Anything that we can do to help you out? Is there any way you would want to talk about it to us? Can we do something for you? If they don't want to tell, it's okay to just let them know about that and walk out of the room and wait for them to come to you. You should never push your help to somebody or to your children. It is not appreciated then. It doesn't do any kind of benefit to the child or to you also. So it's important to say your thing and come back without personalizing. Oh, look, he's not telling us, today's children are different. Rather, we should just let them take their time and give the confidence that if you want, you can come and talk to us. If you don't want to talk to us, you want to talk to your friend or you want to talk to somebody who's a professional, feel free to communicate that also. Never equate yourself with outsiders. If your child is talking to his friend more, don't see it as, their disrespect to yourself. It may be just their way of their comfort with their friend. So also, give them a lot of space. Helping them out does not mean you have to be clingy or on their head all the times. You offer them your help and then you walk out and give them their time and space to come back to you if they want to come. If they don't want to come, that also is okay, but keep following up. If you do not see any changes in the behavior, if you still see the child getting more upset or being more low, go and talk to them and let them know, keep offering them the same thing again and again. Are you still wanting any help? Do you want any way we can help you out? Do you want us to take you to somebody? Do you want us to take you to a psychologist or a counselor or your teacher, or you want to talk about it to your favorite teacher or a favorite family member? Give them all of that space. Do not make them feel sorry about talking to their friends or talking to their teacher. Be a facilitator and not a controller. Individual guidance is very important. You must understand, like I said, you are a different child to your parents. Others are different children to their parents. You should never ever try to compare the parenting style or child's behavior, in any way. Parenting is a unique thing. It is a challenge. It is not a skill that needs to be perfected. It is something that you need to learn and grow every day as a parent. So whenever you're trying to guide or support your child, it has to be very individualistic. You should acknowledge your child's uniqueness first. Okay, this is my child. He's different from everybody. So my approach towards my child has to be completely different. If it requires more playful, more relaxed kind of a parenting, let me do that. If my child is more emotional, let me offer more of emotional support. The point is that you should get the outcome. How you choose your process has to be very, very individual and unique to your child's need. You modify your parenting approach to suit the child's need. It doesn't have to be a very typical conservative way of parenting. Playfulness or experimentation or exploring new ways, they are very, very important aspects. Except that your parenting approach will be different towards each child. Even if you have 2 children, 3 children, it can't be the same parenting to all the 3. They all are different. Their emotional intelligence is different. Their IQ is different. Their way of understanding things is different. Their personality is different. Their temperament is different. So your way of training or dealing with all the children is going to be different. You cannot use the same parenting style to all the 3 children. Yes, some elements can be overlapping, but in certain ways you have to address to the different needs of the child and never bring in the comparison or make them feel that it's so easy to teach the elder one and you are so difficult to train. These are the statements that need to be avoided. Your guidance and support need to be more individual and unique and customized to your child's need. Emotional regulation. Now, when I talk about emotional regulation, normally, okay, we immediately talk about how to regulate your child's emotion. But I think more important factor is your own emotions must be well regulated. Until unless my emotions are regulated, until unless I'm in a good state of mind, I don't think I can offer anything good. You can only offer what you have. If I have anger, I will offer anger. If I'm in a good state of mind, I'm going to offer peace and happiness to the other people. So first, you need to fix up your emotions, your mood before you try solving the child's need. If I am angry, I should never have any discussion with my child. I should never initiate any point of discussion or argument in that angry state of mind, because then I'm going to overpower the child. It serves no purpose. It only helps the child build up a negative understanding about the whole conversation with the parents. They don't want to talk about it. So it's important you calm down your emotions first, and then it is crucial to assist or help your children in managing their emotions. Why? Because they are not able to identify their own emotions. They don't identify when they are irritable. Children, for example, depression in children. The depression in children is never like the child is sitting and crying and saying, I'm suicidal. They don't even know all of that. But they might display that depression in form of extreme irritability, withdrawn, nightmares, stomach aches or body aches and pains, random pains. This is their way of expressing, their negative state of mind. So it's important to identify, help your children with emotional regulation. How can you do that? First, you need to be observant about any changes happening in your child's behavior or mood on a regular basis. If some changes happen on a day or two, it's okay, we can let that go. But if some behavior you notice that, or change in the behavior for a consistent period of time, then you need to identify that there's something wrong at the underlying level. Then you need to identify that change, and then we need to help them understand their own emotions by talking them out in a different way. That is where the playfulness is important. You don't have to follow the very strict approach by making your child sit in front of you and answer your questions. No, maybe sometimes it's very important to elicit through play, through art, through music, through dance. When you engage with your children like that, it is their very natural and easy way of communication. When you play I think is a very inherent language for children to communicate what they want to say. So it takes up very less amount of efforts when you include a lot of playfulness in trying to understand their emotions or trying to help them out. It's very important to help them understand that there is something not okay, by not blaming them or not shouting at them, but by helping them understand that, okay, I'm seeing that, okay, this boy A, B, or C has been, you've been such a cheerful, jolly fellow. You would, wake up in the morning, you would be so happy, you would come and hug us, you would smile when you wake up, or, when you come from school, you would come and tell us the stories of the school. Of late, I'm noticing that you're not talking. Of late, I'm noticing that you're more irritable, you're losing your anger. Is something troubling you? Is there something bothering you? Is there anything that I can do to help you out? Is there something, is there too much of a pressure that you're having? So in that way, when you try to do that, or when you, and mostly these conversations should happen in a very relaxed kind of a setting, maybe, while doing a neutral activity, maybe while playing with them, or while you're engaging them in some household chores, like, cleaning up the room. You can have a communication which is very neutral, and instigate that if anything is troubling them, asking them indirect questions. How are things in school? Who's your best friend these days? Earlier I knew that that girl or boy was your best friend. How come you're not best friends with them? Is something troubling you? Did anything go wrong with you? Ask them very indirect questions in very indirect settings. The moment you make the child sit down in a very formal setting and ask them questions, they get a little worried and nervous, and they wouldn't want to say anything. So it's important to sit down with them in a very neutral setting, maybe while playing or listening to music, or while drawing art, or maybe while gardening and all. Teach different and appropriate ways of expressing negative emotions. It's okay to let them know that, it's okay. It's very important to let them know that, it's normal for us to experience negative mood. It's normal for us to be angry sometimes. It's normal for us to cry. But why we are doing that, it's important to identify those behaviors also. So it's important you let your child know that if you're feeling angry, it's fine, but help them know different and appropriate ways of expressing their anger. The moment we shut the child saying, hey, you should not behave like that, you should not show anger, you should not be this and that, that's not the right way. We are not really helping the child with the solution. Our job is to tell them, what are you supposed to do? If not this, if you're not supposed to show anger by throwing things, then how are you supposed to express your anger? What are the better ways of expressing your anger? So emotional regulation is very important parenting skill that you must do. And I think the best way to regulate their emotions is by bringing in a lot of creativity and playfulness into your daily structure. you know Observational learning. Now, if you want your child to be a healthy, happy, smiling child, you have to display that in yourself. If you are somebody who's getting anxious very easily, if you are somebody who's losing temper very easily, if you are somebody who's becoming very short tempered and all, of course you can't expect the child to show a different behavior. So before you say anything to the child, always look within you and see what kind of a parent, what kind of a model am I to the child. Is there anything of that I am making my child learn? If I am anxious, my child is definitely going to be anxious. If I am losing my temper on and off, my child is also going to learn the same thing. So it's important to look within you and try to see what could be leading to these behavior. Now, how do you screen out the problems? It's very important to focus onto the 4 areas: the psychological development, the social development, academic, and behavioral. If at all you notice any kind of sudden changes in these 4 domains, it becomes important for you to say that yes, there is a need for help. For example, if you see the child is showing a lot of temper tantrums, or if child is showing a lot of mood swings suddenly, there's a very poor self-esteem, the child is remaining very aloof and isolated all the time, the child is not showing any interest in the self-care behavior, they're not interested in choosing their clothes, or saying that what do I want to wear, or if they're not talking what they want to say, if they are constantly getting into arguments and fights at school, or if suddenly you notice their academic performance has come down, or you're getting to hear a lot of complaints from the school, or if you get to know that people are reporting that he's bullying, or becoming very defiant. Now these are the ways how do you identify that okay, something is wrong, these are all problem behaviors, and there has to be a cause behind it. So identifying the problem behavior and punishing the child is a no. but identifying the behavior and trying to identify the reasons behind it. What is troubling the child? What is child benefiting by doing these behaviors? What is he getting out of these behaviors? So that becomes another very important area for you to know when to help the child in a professional manner. It's important to know what your own parenting style too. Sometimes we don't realize that, maybe my parenting style may not be that effective. I need to bring in a little bit of modification in my parenting style. My parents had to do it, or my neighbors have to do it. Does not mean I also have to do it. My parenting style should suit my child. How do you identify your parenting style? Please avoid scribbling. I love your art, but please can we not use this medium as art medium? Okay, so the different types of parenting are demanding, undemanding, supportive, and unsupportive. So if at all, you happen to be in a position where you are just a demanding parent, you are only expecting out of your child. Am I only asking my child to behave this way, that way, perform this way, and always do things as per my needs? Now that is not a very good way, because the child is under a lot of pressure. The child is constantly feeling that I'm not good enough, or my parents are never happy, they only want me to fulfill their needs. Where is my need? Somewhere they feel very isolated and lot in the low self-esteem area. The opposite can be very undemanding parents. They expect nothing out of the child. They are very ignorant, or they don't want to correct anything. If this is happening, okay, yeah, fine. That also is not good, because that makes the child either become very dominant, or the child becomes very underconfident also, or the child feels unloved, unwanted, that I'm not important. Only self-esteem, the child feels social anxiety whenever he's in a setup where he's being addressed to. So no demands at all also is not a very great way. Supportive parenting is something which we we profess about. Unsupportive parenting, for example, the demanding one is very unsupportive parenting, because you are only rejecting their ideas and you are only asking them to do what you want to do. So it also is not very healthy. And basically it's reciprocal, authoritarian, permissive, and indifferent. Reciprocal parenting is where your relationship is reciprocal. You give and take, and you are responsive. It is a bi-directional relationship. I ask you to do something, you do something, and I appreciate it. Or when you ask something, I also do that. So it's a give and take kind of a relationship where it is reciprocal. You are accepting your child, you're accepting their uniqueness, and it's child centered. It's about how the child should be. It's not parent centered. It is very supportive in nature when you have a reciprocal type of parenting. Authoritarian parenting is where it is very controlling in nature, power assertive. I'm the father, I'm the mother, I know it all, you don't know anything. Very unidirectional. I am the one who will give you all the instructions, you only have to follow. That is very unsupportive and very demanding kind of a parent. Supportive and demanding is good. Reciprocal is where I demand certain behaviors out of you, but I'm also supportive when you're not able to do it. I will give in my best. Authoritarian is unsupportive and very demanding. I demand a lot of behaviors. If you're not able to do it, I'm not supportive about it. Permissive style is very undemanding. I don't, I'm very ignorant. I'm not indulging in any kind of equation with my child, but it is somewhere, supportive. It does make the child feel, chalo, at least they're not disturbing me, but it is very undemanding, which the child may end up learning new wrong patterns without being corrected. So in a way, they may feel happy, but that's not how they should be brought up. There has to be a bit of demands and expectation on the child, but in a supportive manner. Indifferent parenting is where you are unsupportive, undemanding. I don't demand anything out of you. You do whatever you want to do. Neglecting, uninvolved kind of a parenting, that also may help make the child become something which others may find difficult to adjust with. Those children often find it very difficult to adjust with others in their adulthood, because they have their own ways. They have always been living in a way where they're not controlled or stopped for anything. They're never told anything, given any instruction, so they're not very healthy to adapt when they grow up. So it's very important to have a demanding and supportive kind of relationship, parenting style for your child. So modern day challenges, if you see, there are so many challenges. More so, we can't let our children go out and play because of the traffic or lack of open areas. So the children have to be in the home. Now, when they are inside the home, they're not given the free space to do whatever they want. And children need a lot of, venting out of the physical energy. They have a lot of energy. If you do not let them vent out their energies, they are going to take it out in a form of a problematic behavior. They can be destructive behavior, they can be temper tantrums, they can be irritability and anger. So outdoor activity is very important, more so for the purpose of play. So if we are not able to give them that outdoor activity, we have to substitute it within the home by creating a small play area for them where they can do whatever they want to do without the pressure of being corrected all the time or pressure of performing in a particular way, even in the play area. So this is one of the very important challenges that we have, and more so pandemic. These days we are not able to let our children go out, but we need to substitute it. We need to create that space within the home for them. Time management. We have to have a structure in their day. We must have certain house rules put into the place. This must be communicated to children that they are supposed to do these behavior, but we are not supposed to overschedule them. We should let them know how to prioritize their activities, how to set up a timetable for themselves for a day, and ensure some adequate hours of sleep. Children who do not sleep adequately often have a lot of behavioral problems. So it's important for them to have good amount of sleep. Guide your children to leave some, have some structure in the day. Allow them, give them the freedom to design their own timetable. Your job is to only facilitate, give them an outline, but how they fill up the whole thing is their job. Let them set up their own timetable. Make it, don't make it for them. Ask them to make it for themselves. You can only let them know the way of making a timetable, that you must keep some time for your work, some time for your entertainment, some time for some responsibilities at home. You let them know the rules of making a timetable, but let them fill up the timetable by themselves. Use of gadgets. I know that's a challenge for these generation parents, but we have to understand that using the gadget is not a problem, but what they are using for and how are they using is very, very important. If they are using the gadgets for the wrong reasons, then yes, they need a lot of modification and correction. But if they're using the gadgets for the good reasons, for example, right now we are using a gadget, but we are using for a healthy reason, for a good reason. So before you immediately jump on to correct the child, it's important to sit with them and understand what is their inclination towards a particular gadget. Why are they feeling so driven to it? What purpose is being served by spending time with that gadget? How can I inculcate that skill into myself as a parent to make myself more interesting to the child, or keep the child away from the gadgets? So you can't tell your children to not use gadgets at all. This is a generation which is a technology generation. They are going to use it for sure, but it's important for us to train them to use it in the right way for our benefit. Tantrums are very commonly seen behavior in children. I mean, whenever a child is throwing a tantrum, do not focus on the tantrum at that moment. Try to understand the reason behind the tantrum. What is making them do that? How have they come to learn this behavior? What is making them, what is reinforcing this behavior? So instead of losing your control or cool in the process of calming them, try to give them time. Whenever they are throwing a tantrum, it's okay to be quiet and silent and stand on the side, because the more you attend to a tantrum, it is going to be reinforced. But the moment you ignore the tantrum, you just look here and there and not notice the child, it is definitely going to completely, negatively reinforce the behavior, as in the child will know that, okay, this is not going to get me anything. So let me try and talk to them in a different way. Maybe that might get their attention. So it's important to know when to ignore a behavior and when to reward a behavior. When the child is throwing a tantrum, ignore that behavior. But if the child is doing something good, try to, the moment the child is communicating to you in a good way, immediately listen to them, maintain eye contact, sit down to their level and talk to them. Always make them feel appreciated when they're talking in a good way. The moment they're throwing a tantrum or using a wrong way of communicating, you can completely ignore. At least the first thing you can do is not lose your calm in that. You be as comfortable and patient as much as you can be. A lot of parents have complaints about the siblings. I mean, the sibling fighting and sibling rivalry and all of that. The best way to solve that is never, you don't have to solve all their fights. You don't have to get into it as a referee for all the fights. Some fights they have to know how to overcome, because that will help them build up a sibling bond. It's very important. Avoid the comparisons, encourage more communication, encourage individual communication. Make sure, if you notice that one child is only communicating through the elder one, now that's not a healthy way. Or if the elder one is communicating through the younger one, you have to encourage equal and individual communication. If they have any issues, they can come and talk freely. Do not take sides in an argument. That's a very dicey and difficult situation. If two are fighting, your job is to resolve the fight. Your job is to make them stop fighting. Your job is not to say who is right and wrong, until and unless there is something very categorical to say. So avoid taking the sides. You talk in terms of virtues, behaviors, problems. Don't talk in terms of your children. She is right or he is wrong. No. Truth, being honest is correct. being respectful is correct. So when you use these virtues, when you use the adjectives, that is what is important. You don't have to take the sides. Oh, she is right or he is right. That is to be avoided. The behavior which is right should be named. The behavior which is wrong should be named instead of naming the child in that argument. Use the timeout strategy whenever you feel that they are fighting up too much. Separate them for some time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Don't let them talk, and just let them be away. That will naturally bring them together, because that will be too boring for them. A lot of time what we do is we jump on to solve the problems, but sometimes we should just let it be. We should be okay and comfortable. Let them have their time. We should be comfortable with the fact that children should be left on their own also sometime. We can't control everything about them. Thank you. Also help them resolve the conflict. Sometimes they may be stuck, they may be confused, they may take the whole conflict into a wrong direction. So it's important to give your understanding to the whole thing in a very non-judgmental, non-critical way, unbiased manner, not making the child feel okay, they are trying to, gang up with the other sibling. Try to help them resolve the conflicts by being as non-judgmental as you can be. And one of the bigger reason these days is also that we are living in smaller nuclear families. Earlier there would be larger families. If one parent is busy or both the parents are busy, there are so many others to take care of the child. Or if you as a parent end up displaying a wrong behavior, or a disciplined behavior towards them, or a strict behavior, they can still go and get support from the other family members. There would be a stronger support system. Nowadays we are living in smaller families, so if anything goes wrong with me, between me and my child, it continues for a longer duration. The child doesn't find any other way of outlet, or expressing what they feel to any other member, because they're just limited people in the family. So that also becomes one important reason. So it's very important to have a very good communicative pattern with your child. It's important to let your children know that even if you are angry with the child, that does not mean you will not talk to them. That does not mean you will discard them completely. So it's important to have that kind of a connect with your child. Now, some tips for the parenting. Now, here comes the part of playful parenting. In your daily routine, when you bring in, how can you bring in your playfulness into the parenting style? It's very important to move ahead from the, unhealthy or very conservative style of parenting. It might have worked sometime, but maybe not every time. You need to keep bringing in changes in your parenting style. It's important, very important, to have playful attitude in your parenting. You don't have to see at parenting as a you know uh, do or a die kind of a thing. It's not like winning or losing. It's about creating something new. So when you are more creative, when you are more playful, you bring out more healthy things. It comes out with more motivation and dedication. How can you bring playfulness into your routine? It's very normal, that parents often complain that children don't follow the routines or the regular rituals in the morning. For example, you have to, of course, they're dependent on you for brushing and all of that. So you have to do a lot of nagging for that. You brush your teeth, or you go to take shower, you must sit and finish your homework. So when you bring in a bit of playfulness in your attitude, it definitely reduces nagging, because you become a friend to your child. You try to see their world through their eyes, and then try to understand, okay, how can I make this world more entertaining for them? How can I make myself more approachable to them, more playful to them? So it reduces the scope of argument and shouting, and definitely the stress amount goes low, and it attracts the child towards you. Just how the child is driven towards video games or friends, or digital gadgets and all of that, you will also be an attractive source to the child when you have playfulness in your attitude. And basically, when you follow a lot of researches that are done onto the child behavior, it has been said that playful learning, like using virtual ways of learning, or using digital platforms, or sitting down with them on the floor and trying to explore something in their way, being silly with them, being sometimes over dramatic, or sometimes bringing in different styles of learning. For example, if a child doesn't want to brush the teeth on time, you can bring in a playful learning, for example, storytelling concept, like toothbrush is a weapon and germs are the monsters and you have to kill them. So and who does it faster, let's see who wins. You are creating a sort of video game without a digital gadget, and the child also feels entertained. To maintain any flow into a behavior, it's important to have entertainment and playfulness into it. So when you create things like storytelling, or songs, creating up songs, or different ways of communicating to your child, like communicating through a song, or communicating through a poem, or communicating through pictures, or talking to them, or trying to do the learning aspect in natural environment by sitting in the garden or sitting in a balcony. It's important to bring in these creative ways. It's very important. We don't have to be very strict and stringent about the fact, no, if I have to teach my child, it has to happen on a table chair only. Or if my child is not learning, I will repeat the same way of teaching them. Maybe, you can bring in a lot of different ways, audio visual cues into your way of teaching your children. Basically, it facilitates the flow of their engagement. For any kind of learning to happen or any kind of a behavior to persist, there has to be an engagement into it. If the child is not feeling engaged, they're not going to display that behavior. When you add a playfulness to your way of teaching, your playful way of learning new things, or playfulness into your parenting, it improves the child's attitude towards that thing. For example, a lot of children are scared of doing maths. They are scared of doing maths because of the fear of failure, not because of the subject itself. So how can we make it more engaging? How can we make the child lose that fear? Can we keep giving small rewards? Can we teach the child the same subject or same chapter in a playful manner? Maybe on the ground, maybe on the stairs, maybe in the garden area, whatever. So basically, consequence is important. The outcome is important, whether the child is learning or not, whether a child is doing that behavior or not. The process can be very much comfortable, flexible, and playful. It diminishes the child's anxiety. The moment you are playful in your approach towards your child, it definitely takes away a lot of their anxiety. They will come running to you whenever they are having any kind of a struggle or difficulty. It will improve their creativity, because they will also have a different way of looking at things. If you follow a conservative pattern, they are also going to display the same conservative behaviors. So the moment you bring in different approaches, the child will also bring in a different approach. For example, if the child is not dressing up properly, if they're taking a lot of time, or they're, they're not, you need a lot of nagging for them to put on their shirts, maybe you can just jump in and say, hey, I know I'm an expert in dressing up. I'm an expert in doing things in clothing the child very well, and just try to put the clothes all wrong. Maybe, shoes on the head and socks in the hand. The child will laugh, the child will know, okay, this is some sort of stupidity, and then the child will try to display the right behavior. So sometimes, to correct a particular behavior, it's okay to use different ways and mechanisms of doing it. It's okay to become and look a bit silly to them. It's okay to look a bit dramatic and, a bit out of the box. It's very important to have that out of the box thinking with your children. It helps them, have creativity. It builds in a self-confidence. The child will know, okay, I'm also good enough, I can also do things. It makes them feel more secured and safe being around you. So the important tips that I would want you to remember out of this whole conversation is, first thing, parenting is not about the perfection. Parenting is about a process. You appreciate your child's effort. It's very important not to only look at the outcome. Sometimes it's important to see the process. Has the child put in right efforts? If he has put in efforts and hasn't gotten the result, it's okay. But it's important to appreciate their efforts also. Every step needs to be appreciated and not just the end result. Explore your child's interest, know what interests them, and bring in that kind of playful attitude in your style, to be more comfortable to them, to connect with them. If you have a good connect with them, they will open up like anything and they'll follow your instructions too. It's like I said, it's okay to be silly and dramatic sometimes with your children. You don't have to be a very strict stereotype kind of a role to play with your children. Like, father has to be strict and father does not have to hug the child. You can very much hug your child. You can very much, make them sit in your lap. It's very much important to sit down in the ground. It's very important to do some stupid drawing with them. It's very important to do some random dancing the moment you get out of the bed in the morning. You start with your day with some playfulness. Like, the moment you wake up your eyes, it's important to play up nice music and, just do a little bit of moves with your children. That sets up the tone for the day. The child feels, okay, the parent does not mean it's all about correction and saying no for everything. You can have fun also together. For example, while setting the cleaning up the room, a part of the room can be divided, and you can have a small competition with your children, who cleans up faster, who cleans up much better, who's more creative in setting up the room. So explore, be more exploring and creative in nature. Adapt your parenting to fit your child. Don't do what your brothers and sisters are doing. Don't do what your parents have done. Create your own style that fits your child's need. Communication is very important with your children. And communication, I mean, not just the verbal communication, non-verbal communication, nodding the child, looking into the eye, lifting up their chin or holding them. These are very, very important ways of communicating. The other important part is not jumping to solve their problem or give them an answer. It's important to listen more and act less with children. The moment you listen more, the child will only start understanding, okay, Once they have expressed what they felt, they will own up the responsibility of doing something about it. You can guide them, that's important. You can be a facilitator, but don't try to take the whole key into your hand, the entire control. Use play as a strategy. For example, if the child is not wanting to do morning rituals, if they're not wanting to study or study a particular subject, bring in play into it. Play is a very wonderful universal language for children. They pick it up without efforts. So when you learn, for example, a lot of maths problems can be taught by playing, counting or calculating, addition, subtraction, or maybe learning a new language, or maybe English. I think you can use play in so many ways to try to encourage the child to not run away from things, but be more embracing about a particular situation, be it difficult or more complicated. Be consistent in your approach. Today I'm in a playful mood and tomorrow I'm not. That should be wrong. If I'm not in a good mood, it is okay for you to feel tired. If you're not in a great mood, you communicate with the child that right now I'm not feeling good, allow me some time, I will get back to you with my usual energy. It's important to communicate. Don't sit and assume them or wait for them to assume and understand what you're going through. Let them know. If you let them know, they might be upset for a moment, but they will understand, because you will come back to them after a point of time. But the moment we hush them away, or we engage into a particular activity being irritable, they understand it, and that's a very damaging thing. So avoid that display of your unhealthy emotions while doing something with them. If you're not feeling good, let them know. Take your time off and then come back with your energies. Avoid physical punishment at any cost. It does no good at all. If you feel that physically punishing is an easy way out, to come out of that situation, then you don't want to trouble yourself with creative thinking. So when you try to understand why is my child behaving this way, try to bring in as many ways of fighting that off than hitting the child. Spend quality time with your children. A lot of people feel that it's about quantity. No, even if you spend some 45 minutes with your child every day, but in that time you're not focusing on anything, you forget about the whole world, you are not concerned about your phone, your mails, your work, and nothing. You are just there as a parent to your child, as a friend to your child, looking into their eye, playing at their level, playing what they want to play, not what you want them to play. I think that quality is very important, the time in the time that you spend with your child. And a lot of playfulness, a lot of silliness, a lot of mistakes you can do with your child. You can do what they want you to do. Sometimes it's okay to let them be the rulers. Some days you can tell them, okay, today you are the ruler, you tell what you want us to do. So these are the playfulness that you can bring in your attitude. And last but not the least, make sure you never lose out the element of respect while you're dealing with your child. No matter how young they are, you should always have a sense of respect towards them, and unconditional positive regard, that even if you're young, you have a say. It's okay to be communicating what you want to say, even if does not make sense to me, does not mean I will invalidate and hush them away. No, respect has to be there no matter what, in any kind of a situation. Even if they end up doing something very wrong, still make sure that you have a way of talking to them. Never go beyond that, never go below that. Okay, so this is what I feel is important for you to bring in, the kind of a playfulness or a kind of comfortable, flexible attitude towards your children in a way of parenting. I think you will have a lot of different experiences with your child. Now I'm open to Q&As. Please feel free to share your thing. I think I've overshot it, but I'm still open to your questions.
Yes, ma'am, I think that was a wonderful session. I think we'll just go through a few questions now. There are a few questions, many questions actually, asking about sibling rivalry and jealousy. How do we deal with that?
Okay. See, sibling rivalry and jealousy is actually a normal occurrence. It happens in all of us. We all go through that. And why? It is a normal thing because, for the elder one, for example, if I'm the elder one, when I'm the only child, I get all the attention. And then suddenly a new child comes, the attention is divided. So it's not a parent's fault to do that. Child has to get accustomed to it. But how do we do that? So never try to see that, oh, my child is developing sibling rivalry or jealousy, there's some problem. No, it's a normal behavior. Your job has to be more supportive at this point of a time. Your outlook towards the child has to be more unbiased, and you should try to understand what is the child feeling. Ask them, what makes you feel this way? What makes you feel jealous? Did you notice any, you give them a command. You sometimes let them say, you let them give you a feedback about your parenting. It is very, very important. The moment we try to avoid or not give them the authority to say what they feel, is when they develop all of these kind of unhealthy feelings. Let them say what they want to say. Maybe they are noticing something. Maybe they want to say that I don't see that you are giving me time. I see that you only love him. You always take his side. Now, the important thing is, a lot of times we see parents are very open in letting their child give a feedback, but they're not very good in taking the feedback. How you take the feedback is also very important. If the child communicates something that is distressing them, or feels that you're not giving me enough time, you're only giving time to him, don't get angry. Don't you see that I'm busy, I have to look after him also? Don't you know that he is younger? This is not how you should respond. Rather, you can validate the feeling that yes, I agree, what you're feeling is right. I have not been able to give you the time that you were getting earlier, but maybe, but I would want you to help me out with this. How can you help me with this? Earlier I only had you, now we have this another one also. How do we deal with it? I can't leave. I mean, can we share the responsibility of the younger one so that I can give you some time? For example, if I'm giving 8 hours to the younger one, can you share 1 or 2 hours of responsibility for that younger sibling so that I can give that 1 or 2 hours to you? So it's very important to know, help the child express what they're feeling, and then not invalidating or pushing them to feel sorry about why did they express what they wanted to express, and then giving them a substitute mechanism for that. Make them a part of your a regime with your sibling, with their siblings. Make them own up that responsible behavior, that okay, I can share up that extra load from their parents, and I can offer that, so that they have that free time to give that to me. So I think identifying the real reason, letting them communicate about their distress and not stopping them from explaining what they want to say, and giving them a free space to talk out their feelings, and then you give them a solution to it. I think that's the best. I think communication is the key for the children, for anything. A lot of times we feel, oh, the child will not understand. We are completely mistaken there. They do understand everything, just that we have to talk in the language which suits their age. You can still communicate to them, they understand a lot, just that we have to tone our language into their age, what suits their understanding level. If you do that, I think they will definitely reciprocate in the good manner.
Definitely, ma'am. The second question that we have is how to deal with kids during pandemic when the balance of school and home is totally disturbed and parenting and teacher roles are intermixing.
Correct. I understand. I think this is one of a very big stress, and I think it is justified too. This pandemic has overwhelmed us all because everything has taken a complete change. There's a 360-degree change. It was unprecedented. We didn't know it was coming. We were not prepared for it. We had a very structured way of living. Even the parents who are working and those who are not working, the child would go to the school. He will be taken care at school. He will be given some assignment which needs to be done at home. So we all had a structure in our day. But now what's happening? Everything is happening under the same roof, within the same confines. We are running the school, we are running the office, we are taking care of domestic responsibilities because we don't have our domestic help anymore, because of the risk of the infection. So I know it becomes very overwhelming. So I think my first suggestion to parents is, please take care of your mental health first. If you are in a comfortable state of mind, if you give time to yourself, if you are taking care of your emotions, you will be able to offer something good to your children. If you are overwhelmed, the children are definitely going to behave the same way. They are going to understand that something is not okay, and that will make them more anxious. So you take care of your mental health by having a good structure in your day, and that structure should be imposed onto the children as well. Make sure there are certain house rules that should be put into place. It should be well communicated to the children, and it should be communicated in a very simple, easy manner so that children understand. Now, house rules means that everyone is expected to do something. It's not that even if the child is very young, does not mean they can't do things. They can still be responsible for something or the other. For example, if a child is 4-year-old, they can still, help the parent in setting up the table for dinner, or removing the dishes from the table, or helping them, set up the bed properly, or put their toys back, or if nothing, help in watering the plants in the garden, something or the other, or maybe helping them, cleaning the room, or setting up things into the place, or filling up the water bottles, something, some small thing. Now, when you put them into these rules, they will become responsible. You will get some time off also. Your responsibilities will be shared. The child will become more understanding that this is what it takes. When you do something, you become more responsible. So I think set up some house rules, communicate them to your children, and let them know. I mean, communicate what is not expected at all, certain behaviors. And I think the other most important thing, with this pandemic, it has a lot of impact on children too, because their lives is also very much restricted. They can't go out, they can't play, they have to go out with a mask, and then when you put on a mask, you can't run and play. So it is difficult for them too. I think it's very important to allow your children some free space at home. Create or substitute that lack of play in their day by creating a play area in the home, and allow them to be themselves. Let them do what they want to do in that 1 hour of their time. Don't try to customize that. Don't try to bring in restrictions into it, like you should not do this, you should not do that. They have to get that vent out for the physical energy. If they don't get that outlet for the physical energy, they are definitely going to be disruptive in their behavior, in their nature. So allow them, create as many creative activities. And I think this is the time we should not focus on the academic outcomes, as in he has to come first in the class. We have to focus on the consistency. They must read a chapter every day. We should not focus on how much marks the child is going to get. It's okay, the times are difficult for all of us. We should maintain at least the bare minimum expectation for sure. Help and facilitate the child, and encourage a lot of creativity into them at this point of time. Because what the child learns, or the brain development that happens by learning in the classroom, the same can also be provided by playfulness also. You can encourage them to do a lot of creative activities. For example, engaging into music, engaging into dance, engaging into some physical activities, playing, or doing a lot of drawing and painting. They are also very important, more so for children of this age. I think for them, we don't have to train them right from now for the 10th standard. It's okay if they are going a little bit easy on their studies right now. The consistency has to be there. They should not get out of practice with the studies. They must practice, they must study every day. But you should you make your expectation, academic expectations from the child bit flexible. It's okay. They're also not used to of staying at home and studying. For them, staying at home means vacation. Suddenly they cannot change their definition. They don't understand pandemic the way we do. So it's okay to go a little flexible with them. It's very important to be very engaged with them. Now you have your responsibilities. When you have a structure in the day, you let your child know that this is my working time. In my work time, you will also do your school time, school work. When we are over with the work, we are going to play. We are going to spend some time together. That communication is important. The child will patiently wait for that time to come so that he can play. When he's playing with you, make sure you're not engaging yourself in any other activity, so that child feels engaged, and he will look forward. And for that time, he will make sure that his behavior is good throughout the day, so that he gets that reward in the evening when he can play with the family, or he can do what he wants to do. So I think this structure in the day and a good communication, certain house rules in the home, they are very important way of dealing of parenting while the pandemic is on.
Okay, thank you so much. Because of time constraint, I think I'll be taking the last two questions. How do we deal with anger tantrums in children?
Okay, so like I said, negative emotions are not abnormal. They are normal experiences. Even we go through that, right? Just that we don't throw a tantrum because we have grown up. But we also throw our tantrums in indirect ways, in a more polished manner. But we also express our anger, right? So how come our anger is justified and theirs is not? So we need to understand that anger is not a problem, but the way you express your anger can be a problem. So you should help your child understand by using the reward and punishment in the right manner. As in, if the child is expressing the anger by talking it out, by saying that I'm not happy, it's important to listen to them. It's important not to invalidate what they're feeling, or telling them, hey, you should not feel this way. You must not behave this way. That's not the right way. You should listen to what they're wanting to say. If at all they are throwing a tantrum, if at all they're showing or displaying a behavior which is a complete no, like hitting or head banging or lying on the floor and all of that behavior, then you must know the simple art of walking out of that or ignoring the behavior. There is something called as differential reinforcement. For example, if you want the child to not do a particular behavior, the best way is by ignoring that behavior. Children at this age, the age group that we are addressing right now, they it is natural for them to seek attention. It is a normal healthy behavior of a child to seek attention. They will do anything and everything that gets them attention. So if they're repeating a behavior, that means somewhere it has been given the attention, somewhere it has been reinforced, otherwise they will not do it. So if a child is behaving in a way which is not nice, it's good to ignore that behavior. If you ignore that behavior consistently every time, the child will know, okay, this is something which does not get me attention. Let me try other way out. Now, if the child is using a good behavior to talk to you, to come to you and talk to you, then you can address to that behavior. So the child will know, okay, if I want to be heard, this is how I will be heard. So it's important to know how to reinforce the behavior. If the anger outbursts are not good, if they are disrespectful, ignore that behavior. Don't try to correct the behavior when the child is already in the outburst. Because the moment you try to get into their outburst, you will also become angry. And that will display. So it will become a shouting match. If you want to avoid that shouting match and make it as a learning thing for the child, dissociate from that moment for a while, as if nothing is happening around you. It can be disturbing, but if you want your child to learn something, you will have to go through that for some time, and the child will learn that, okay, this way of behaving is not going to get me anything. If my parents have to listen to me, I have to talk in a particular way. When the child has calmed down, and if he's talking in a good way, if he's communicating his needs in a positive way, then maybe you can appreciate the child, pat the back and say, this is how I want you to talk. If you have something, if you want something, communicate this way to me, we will listen. And make sure you are sticking onto your words. A lot of time we also forget what we say. We tell the child to come and talk to us when they need something, to talk in a lower voice, but the moment they do that, we don't pay attention to it. So of course the child will come back shouting and screaming about it. So be very honest and disciplined with your own words and instructions to the child. Communicate with them, ignore the wrong behavior, and appreciate the behavior the moment it is the correct behavior. I think that is how the child will pick up, okay, this is the right behavior, this is how I'm supposed to talk. So attention seeking is an important thing. Use it in the right way. Being angry is also a very healthy emotion. Allow your children to be angry, but let them know how to express their anger.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. The last question we'll take up. Can playful parenting be used by everyone in the family, or is it just the mother and the father?
Absolutely not. Everybody. I mean, even an elder sibling can do to the younger one. Grandparents can do to the children, or uncles and aunts can do that to the children. It is absolutely fine. So basically, playful parenting is nothing. It is just adding a touch of play. Now, play does not mean just cricket and basketball. Play means a lot of things, talking in a healthy manner, or singing songs with them, or if they are, finding it boring to learn a chapter or learn a paragraph, sing it like a song, make a kind of, acronym out of it. Or you can use a lot of writing material, you can use a lot of visual aids, audio aids, or you can be more comfortable in the setting of the learning, maybe in the playground area, maybe outside, maybe sitting in a balcony. Sometimes it's adaptability, basically it's flexibility, not being very conservative in your style. Anybody can do. In fact, it is more beneficial if it is done uniformly by everyone in the family.
Right.
That is when it becomes more beneficial.
Okay, ma'am. With that, I think we have reached the end of the session.
Mm.
On behalf of the Delhi Public School Bangalore East Principal and Management, I thank you, ma'am, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and being so tolerant and sporting despite all this distraction. It was
I'm
really
dealing
a
with
wonderful
children,
session.
I have to know. I mean, I'm dealing with children. I should not be. If I
Definitely.
get upset about it, then somewhere I'm being unrealistic in my expectations.
Definitely, that's so true. But thank you so much, ma'am. It was really a wonderful session.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad I was
Thank
part
you,
of
ma'am.
it. Thank you.
Thank you,
Stay
ma'am.
safe, all of you. All the best.